your little circle is that deliverables are becoming more and more like you have to have an HD deliverable. Yeah. So if your film is going to have a short life or no life on the actual screen, it becomes a whole weird. And I'm a hardcore, like I think everything should be shot on 35 because to get to the point where you're shooting on 35, you have to have convinced 9 million people that this is an important thing, and there's the effort. And, to be very honest with you, I've never seen anything more liberated than French films in the 60s, which were all shot on these with huge cameras, and they felt more liberated than anything being done on HD, or most things being done on HD. But it's all about, part of it is all about where you're selling your finished product. Yeah. And broadcasters more and more are saying, we don't just want a beta, we want, it's going to be HD, it's going to be...
That's becoming cheaper and cheaper to do.
Yeah.
That's the great thing,
yeah.
is that it's become the medium of choice. And when you finish on HD, the other great thing about it is that you can create all the deliverables from your one master.
Yep.
If you, in the older days, you'd finish on film, you'd have to create separate masters with separate color correction to deliver PAL and NTSC. One for Europe, one for North America. It was a separate pass, separate color correct, the whole thing. So you have to pay for the suite twice. Now you do your one HD conform, you can output anything you want. You can output to film, you can output to PAL D-Beta, to CCAM D-Beta, to NTSC. It all comes from that same master. And that's a plus. And as it's getting cheaper and cheaper to do that master.
You guys are probably most interested in just making that first film, right? And how to show it out there. You're not worried about deliverables.
Yeah. It's something we have to consider, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't worry about it. No, you know what? Honestly, the truth of it is, and George is absolutely right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I know where you're going though. At this point, the thing you need to be most concerned about is story and character. Yeah. Because the truth of it is, no matter how shitty it looks or whatever, if it's good, people will watch it. You will get seen. It will find an audience, so the industry will stand up and start to take a peek and wonder what you're doing next, and so on. So yeah.
Well, Brad,
if you're lucky enough to get distribution, somebody will figure out how to
fix it.
How to
deliver it.
Yeah. Well, I think that we've got a good story, but the HD thing is a cost consideration for us in terms of negative cost.
Where do you stand now? What stage is it in?
We're trying to complete the final model. We have our startup C, but we're trying to complete the rest.
Okay. You've got a finished script and.
Oh yeah. Going through all the drafts and everything's already broken down, schedule.
I only have 1 year, so I don't get serious on it.
Not Livng Dead. You recouped your initial financing. How long was it between the period of time that you lost copyright on it and the time that you actually started to get it out? Like how long did you actually hold copyright for and you were able to make it?
Oh well, no one noticed the copyright thing.
Yeah.
It went out within we spent, as I say, around $114 grand after we paid everything. It returned within the first 3 months of release, close to $600,000. So we thought, wow, we did it. They actually returned it.
And where did you go? This was like in 67, 58, 60. So you were sending out to, did you get any broadcast or was that like?
Oh, no. We got a distributor, Walter Reed. And they put it in drive-ins, neighborhood theaters and all that. They actually sent us a check. I mean, how rare is that?
Wow.
And, so we made money. Everybody made money on it. But then all of a sudden it dried up. Now that $600 grand that it returned was all that it ever returned. And, there was 28 of us, so it didn't go around.
So when did people notice that copyright expired and not been bound?
After it was already out of this initial release, and then Walter Reed put it out as a double bill with, bringing in no money with things like Daleks and Doctor Who and Daleks and Creeps. They tried it on the back end of double bills. They just thought it was one of those movies. That was, going to be little noticed and fodder, something that they could put out on the back half of a double bill. And then right in there, and it didn't matter, because even if it didn't have a copyright, nobody's going to make prints, and, pirate prints, and try to make money on it. It wasn't until video, of course. that somebody.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at, though, because now it's really easy to do that, and there's this concept of viral video. And it seems to me when you said that, it was almost like yours was one of the first viral videos. And in essence, it was of tremendous value because it made a reputation.
Yeah. Oh yes, no question about that.
Well, and that is really the most important first thing to kind of establish, though,
Yeah.
right, is your reputation, the fact that you are a filmmaker, you're a writer, you're a director, you're an actor, producer, whatever. I mean, let that first one go. Right? If you want the career.
Well, that is the other thing, and that's always been my attitude about it. Now, there are a lot of people in the company. There were 28 people in the company that made the film. All the people that kicked in money, and it was this very democratic union. A lot of those people would like to still be working, but they aren't because they either don't, they have day jobs, or they're not willing to invest the time and energy, or they don't have the chops. And so they're still there trying to milk as much as they can out of Night of the Living Dead, which is why they did the colorized version, which is why when they did the remake of it, I actually wrote the remake because I said, well, that's a reasonable thing to do, plus I wanted to apologize to women. And
really?
Yeah, that's part of the reason. If you look at the two films, all of a sudden she's an ass kicker.
I hated it.
Yeah, and she was an ass kicker.
Tom Savini did that one?
Tom Savini directed it, yeah. But that one I said, yeah, I'll go along with that, let's remake it. Because maybe that will reestablish a copyright, but it didn't. It didn't reestablish any sort of copyright on the title. You can't copyright a title.
Copyright a title.
So,
Working, you made a mistake.
what's that?
You made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad even in Canada.
Ah,
It's different.
No copyright on
You don't get now. That's what
copyright title in Canada either.
You can't copyright a title.
Yeah. No, you
So
can't
the
copyright.
copyright laws are different, so the fact that George had written Night of the Living Dead would have meant that I think copyright would have stayed with George as the writer.
Oh, yes, okay, so I thought you made reference to the title, that you're trying to decide that one, okay.
Wouldn't the impression made to a colleague that George Romero said it wouldn't that then retain the cover?
No, we've explored all. I mean, we tried the colorization. We tried the.
Okay, wait a minute, I have an idea.
Really, I'm gonna save it.
We're
gonna do it.
And it's a template that Charlie Chaplin did. Like when his, at the time, with the transition from silent to sound film, Chaplin, who scrambled to put his own soundtracks on all his silent films. The reason being, he had no rights to the visual. Like, if you just showed any of Chaplin's films in, let's say, 1950, with just watching the film, he had lost copyright for a period. So what he did was he went into the woodshed and composed all these crazy soundtracks for all his silent films. And the music was more binding a copyright deal than his the films that he actually created.
Do you have a piano at home, George?
Yeah. So if George were to redo
There's one right there, by the way.
That was the
So
argument.
if you were, yeah.
That was the argument about the colorization, and except that was stupid. I mean, people would want to see Charlie's films with his own music on them. Nobody's going to want to see, Night of the Living Dead in color.
But I'm just saying, Night of the Living Dead with, like, I don't know, like Metallica soundtrack. I don't know. There's somebody who can strip it down and just make it a silent film.
Well, you still couldn't. All you would get would be the music, right?
Yeah.
Because the film is still visual.
But it's married. So, if it's married, it's one piece.
If it's married, and if it becomes popular that way. But I still think, what Night of the Living Dead has played somewhere in the world, in some theater, probably every night since 1968.
Where did you write it?
Okay.
Film's available for free download, by the way, on the internet.
Okay,
We've been around the horn on all of that stuff. It's the one that got away, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was such I can speak as an American who was there, and I was a young film obsessed individual, and just the word of mouth on the damn thing was just incredible. It is a potential lost leader.
Oh, it
And I
is.
think everyone has to get into that loss
No, but
leader
and as you
mindset.
said, man, I know people, I meet people that are saying, well, you're trying to make this deal, you're trying to get the last bit of financing, and you know, sometimes people will advise you get a good lawyer, make sure you're putting it down.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, that's true, but you have to know when to tell the lawyer to shut his face.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
You know, because I want this to happen.
Because the lawyer gets paid regardless.
Yeah.
The thing is that the lawyer works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing if you're an actor and you're looking for an agent. They're working for you. You got to push their buttons in order to make the deal happen, because they're getting paid one way or another, and they really don't give a crap because there's another person around the corner willing to pay them the same amount of money to do the same thing.
And they will want to protect you from cockroaches. You should stand up and say, I don't care about the cockroach.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, if you want the deal to happen, sometimes you have to. And if it's early in your career, it's been said here, man, it's best to even throw. If you can make a movie, make it.
Okay. I want to bring the question into the future now. I'd like your opinion from all three of our panelists here. Thank you for coming out today once again. Where do you feel the nature of the film business heading towards? Because this is a student festival.
Figure that, we'd be out making money right now.
Because this is a student festival, and we're seeing younger and younger filmmakers come out. We've got companies like YouTube and MySpace and whatever else, Facebook and all these other things. They're hatching out, and some of them make it, some don't. And now it's like, I mean, I'm recording this on a camera phone, for crying out loud, right? You know, it's not the best quality, mind you, but at least it's a memorable fact that we've had, you know, three great guests sitting here. Yes, you're on there, Jeffrey. And, you know, I got all the three. It's sitting on the table just perfectly. So,
It's a good question, though. I mean, like I was saying, the flexibility of HD is to allow the democratization of the whole business has been happening for a few years. It's going to happen more and more. In terms of, you know, whether people are still going to go to cinemas to watch, I think what's going to happen is you'll end up getting a much more visceral experience. They'll have full 3D experiences in the cinemas. I think that more and more of the big blockbusters that we're seeing in the summers now are going to become bigger and more sci-fi, more fantasy, in full 3D. And there's going to be a huge market for internet delivery of film. How that translates into all of us trying to make our films, whether you make a deal with some content provider on the net, or whether you're able to sell the film yourself on the net, it's kind of hard to say. I think the trail is being blazed right now by a lot of the music industry and the musicians who are making some of their music available, because it's a much lower bandwidth. You're seeing the same idea with creative expression happening on the net with the music industry. Watching how that evolves, I think, is going to make a difference to how individuals can get their stuff out there. The bigger business, I still believe that people like stories, and I do believe that people enjoy the experience of going to a cinema. I think whether it's on a date or whatever, you know, it's fun to sit at home, and I think the screens are getting bigger, and we'll probably have, that's going to erode business. But I think the experience of going out to the cinema is still going to be around for a while. Like people think it was going to be the death of books because of television. That isn't going to happen. People love the idea of reading on a car or a train or the beach, whatever. And I think people are still going to like that.
Movies might be different, though. I mean, because it is annoying, expensive to go out there with it. And I think you're right. I think what it's going to be, it'll become an event again. I mean, like when I was young, man, I grew up in New York City before I moved to Pittsburgh, and you wanted to go see the Ten Commandments, you went to a scalper to buy tickets, you read stuff, it was reserved seats. I mean, literally, the same guys that were selling tickets for My Fair Lady were selling tickets to the Ten Commandments. And it was a huge thing. It would play in the Criterion Theater for 6 months. It was an event. And I think that maybe it'll go back to, that. There'll be more event things and the little stuff. Like what this year, the last King of Scotland, the Queen, stuff like that, may go out somehow get, zapped to you over the air.
Well, they're saying, I mean, the theatrical release of a lot of those films we talked earlier about lost leaders, and that becomes a marketing tool. It becomes a 2-hour trailer for
a DVD sale,
or internet download, or however it's going to be delivered.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, actually, let me can we turn it back to these guys?
Yeah.
No, because I mean, so you're working on a feature. Is that what the intent is? It's a feature? Like, yeah, I mean, like that's totally the stuff to do. I mean, there are markets there. I mean, how many of you then that have a film here that have a short or something though that's playing this festival?
Yeah, we've got a couple of directors here. Yeah.
And is this like the first venue you've taken it to, or like have you put it on online somewhere, or like where do you want it to go?
Well, actually, I've been to a couple festivals for visiting around, like, internationally, too, so in the U.S. and over to Canada. But I've read a lot of festival regulations that it's not allowed to be distributed on the net before. And if it is, then you're not allowed to submit it to festivals.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of give and take, so which would you say would be, like, a better distribution path, or, like...
You want an honest answer? I don't know. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
No, because in terms of festival submissions and things like that, if you want that kind of recognition, though, and you want to be able to put, that stuff on a resume and in your bio and things like that, like, all that stuff is great, I sat in on a panel back in May with somebody from MTV, and this guy, again, talking to a room full of producers and stuff and talking about mobile and internet and things like that, and this guy, who shall remain nameless because Harris is recording it.
I think I was there, wasn't I, too? Was this the ice conference?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. That was March, I think.
Oh.
But anyways, to get back to the point, though, he was basically saying, listen, you know what, if you're a room full of unknown producers and directors and writers, though, you know what, really, I don't want to talk to you. I have a mandate that I have to fill, though, too, and I've got to deal with this show and that show and this and that, and so, and I've got reputable directors and writers and producers coming to me with stuff already. I have their agents submitting them to me already. I've got their lawyers calling me about that stuff. I don't need to hear from somebody who I don't know, because the first thing I have to do, even if their idea is good, is I have to validate it to 8 people above me that, hey, listen, this is somebody we should take a chance on. And to convince 8 other people to say yes to someone that they don't know is like a retarded thing. And like, basically, you got like a 1% chance of that happening. He did say, though, and I thought, well, you know what, wow, here's times are changing. You've got it up on YouTube or something, you've got 1 million hits on YouTube, guess what? He's going to pick up the phone and call you. So, the festival stuff is great and can be great, and the festivals are kind of scared about the whole internet and...
May I just interject?
You may.
Because I run a distribution company and I do festival programming as well. And I think one of the biggest dangers right now is that if you have a new film out and you let it go too long on the festival circuit, you're kind of fucked, to be very honest.
Yeah.
Like especially with features, because I distribute features and I do them theatrically across Canada. And what happens is you've got a filmmaker that is just so hell-bent on doing all the festival stuff that it can go on for like 1.5 years. And then if I pick that film up, and I've done this, like there are films I feel passionately about, and I don't worry that they're 1.5 years old, but I try to do them theatrically and do them with broadcasters, and they look at me and say, well, this film is 1.5 years. Like, this is, this is old. So it's kind of dangerous. You have to put a ceiling on how much festival time you do. I feel kind of evil saying this at a festival. But you got to put a lid on it, and even for short films, there's some. If you're Canadian filmmakers, there are some really aggressive, really excellent people that buy and sell content. Like, I don't know if you know, like Uat Media here in Canada, like Jen Chan and Shane Smith. They sell product, but you can't let your product, do the fest circuit too long. Sorry to say that.
You also have to know in your heart whether your idea is commercial. You have to really know in your heart whether it's commercial. That's a very tough thing to discover. You may have this wonderful and poetic idea about a people's story, a human story, and in your heart you have to know, boy, I'm not going to sell this.
Yeah. Or you could put a ceiling on how long you give to let that realization come to you. Because, you can't push things up a mountain for too long.
No.
Like, there's a really interesting filmmaker out of Boston, a guy named Andrew Bujalski, I distributed his first film called Funny Ha Ha which in the U.S. is wildly successful. He shoots on 16. He edits on Steenbeck. He's a substitute teacher who lives in his parents' basement. His second film.
Gotta meet this guy.
You guys probably impressed him. His second film is a film called Mutual Appreciation, which I think is going to be one of the best top 10 films of the decade. He really tapped into the zeitgeist of things. But again, he shot on 16, edited on Steenbeck in his parents' basement. And this film got picked up by BBC Films of the UK. It was shot for like $10. But his insights, like, this ties back to what everyone was saying up here. It's like there's a humanity that you need to tap into, no matter what your genre or whatever. If it's good and if it's resonant. I mean, this is like I'm a huge John Cassavetes fan, which is not good for film distributor. But I am. John Cassavetes was the first guy to return a phone call from,
He made Rosemary's Baby, right?
Yes. He made it watchable. So this guy Andrew, his feet is head against the wall, but his second feature, they took it to a festival you should all know about, the Rotterdam Film Festival, which also ties into the Rotterdam Cinemart. And after his second film, Mutual Appreciation, which I screened at my film festival, which is the North by Northeast, I'm a music guy as well. But he raised financing through the moderate success of two wildly independent features. And, when one of them was picked up by BBC, he was able to enter this Rotterdam Cinemart, and he's basically raised all the financing for his third feature. He's still living in his parents' basement, but
Did you go to film school, George?
No,
Was there film school? Really?
No, as I said, it was just film appreciation.
Yeah.
How many of you are in like a film school or like this like?
I went to film school.
You don't count.
Where?
Columbia College, Chicago.
Yes.
We're 1978. I was there with me and nothing but Vietnam vets. I couldn't get into NYU because my grades were off. They sent me there.
I respect it.
Yeah. Ambrose. Yeah, I'm a decade distributor. Just so you know, I'm legit. I'm not just dressed up to.
Hey, Ambrose, come on, seat, dude.
I like to be here. I run a distribution company called
That was great. I'll tell you later, but that was great.
I just wanted you to repeat that filmmaker's name from Boston.
Andrew Bujalski, I'm telling you, he is the second coming. And you heard it here. Like, really, he doesn't even know he's the second coming. But he's like...
What else do you guys want to know?
Yeah.
So, why don't we ask more questions from the students here?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
now I'm in play.
In terms of obtaining and acquiring financing, one thing I'm noticing is a lot more independent financiers and people are now noticing the value in the entertainment industry, especially film. And where do you see it going? Do you see it going more private investors, either kind of companies, capital companies, or do you still see production companies financing, studio financing? Where do you see it going?
You can find a production company that has a lot of money behind them, then please give me their number.
Yeah.
That's
where you want to be.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking just before, George Michael, that